All right, so this one is the extension problem. So if you are feeling ready to extend, this is a type of problem that you might have seen if we were able to be all together at this time learning, but this level of complexity you will not see this year when we are assessing you. But I still think you're ready to do it. So I'm going to draw my cosine shape, max down to min, back to max. I always like to just keep that in mind. My amplitude is 3. My period, 2 pi over b. So that gives me, the pi's reduced, 2/4 is 1/2. So a period of 1/2. Okay, a phase shift to the left 1. A vertical shift down 2. If we have a vertical shift down 2, that tells us the midline is y equals -2. Our domain continues to be negative infinity to infinity. And a range, if I'm at -2 for my midline, and I go up 3 from that, then I'm going to get to 1. And if I go down 3 from that, I'm going to get to -5. So we're going to go from -5 to 1. So I'm going to put my y-axis. I want to make sure that I at least leave a little bit of space to do my phase shift to the left. Okay. And actually, when I draw this y-axis, I should make sure I draw it extending quite a bit below, because we know we're going to go all the way down to -5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up to 1. Okay. And my midline at -2. Okay. Now I need to figure out what are my intervals and what are those key points, what are those x-axis labels going to be? So my phase shift is -1. So that means I'm going to go to the left 1, and there's -1. That's where my period is going to start now because it's shifted. And then I'm going to add 1/4 of my period each time. So my period is 1/2, and I want to divide that by 4 and to get my 4 intervals. So that means each interval is 1/8. So if I start at -1 and I add 1/8 to -1, whoops, I wrote 1/2. There we go. And I add 1/8. So that means I could rewrite -1 as -8/8. I would get -7/8. And then if I take -7/8 and I add 1/8, you know what I'm noticing right now is that I didn't really put my y-axis in the right place because I didn't give myself nearly enough space since the interval is so small. So I'm going to move this far over here just to give myself some more space. Okay, so -7/8 is my next interval. And then when I add 1/8, I get -6/8, which we know reduces to -3/4. So here I'm going to have -3/4. Okay. And then if I take that -6/8, I add 1/8, I get -5/8. So my next one is at -5/8. So I only have 3 intervals so far, so I need to do this one more time. So -5/8 plus 1/8 gives me -4/8, which is -1/2. So really, if this was drawn well to scale, this should be a little bit over, right? Because I should have more space between -1/2 and 0. Okay, so now I have my midline, I have my maximum and my minimum, and I am just going to draw this right in. So we have an amplitude of 3. Let's see, I'm starting at my maximum. So here's my max, here's my midline, here's my minimum, back to my midline, back to my maximum. And I didn't do a very good job drawing this in, so let's try that one more time. There we go. Much better. So that's how we could draw a graph that has both a period change and a phase shift.